What's going on, everybody? I was streaming just a moment ago, but I am trying again because we were getting some errors there, and I think it was only going out to Facebook, and I think I might have got it fixed. I guess we'll see. If you guys can hear me, if you could kindly shout out something in chat, that would be awesome. My chat looks like it was only going to Facebook as well. It looks like maybe it is working now. And yes, okay, cool. I am seeing my face over on the Twitch channel, so I think we're good to go. I'm not sure if there's anybody over on YouTube that's watching. If you guys could shout out, say something in chat, let me know. If you guys can hear me, that would be fantastic. Let me try one last thing here. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I have a feeling I know what it is. We'll try this little toggle real quick. And see if that works. So give me just 1 minute here. Beautiful, cool. I got it working. Awesome. Well, like I said, shout out in chat if you guys can hear me. Whether you are on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, wherever you guys are watching from. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started here. So welcome everybody to the Pixelogic ZBrush channel. It looks like the title is not updated, so I am Follygon. I am not Sedania, but you guys can call me Ben, whatever you want. Doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, if you guys want to check out more of my stuff, I think I have it pulled up here still somewhere. You guys can check out the Appeal Academy. It's just appeal.academy. Type that into your browser, and you guys can check out my stylized and appealing character course. If you guys want to check out the rest of my stuff, you guys you can just Google Follygon to find my Gumroad with all my courses, brushes, materials, my YouTube channel, all the good stuff. But I think we've wasted enough time here trying to figure all this stuff out in the stream, but I think we're good now. So let's go ahead and get started. So, people on Facebook already know this because we were streaming for a few minutes over there before I realized it was only going to Facebook. But tonight we are going to be doing something a little bit more beginner-friendly. Essentially, what I want to do is go from... Oh, in 1 second here, let me just reply to this message really fast. Sorry, guys. Okay, so we are going to be looking at the three main sculpting tools, essentially, in ZBrush. So we are going to be looking at Sculptris Pro, DynaMesh, and ZRemesher. And we are going to be, I have a couple references of some reptiles and some other stuff going on over here that we are going to be using along the way to maybe sculpt some kind of creature or dragon or, you know, something. But more of the focus is going to be on the tool set. So main tools kind of that we can use to manipulate and work with geometry. It looks like my chat is maybe still kind of bugging out on me, but I am going to keep going because I can see that it is working on Twitch. So no worries there. We'll go ahead and continue on here, and somebody can stop me along the way, hopefully, if something's breaking too much. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first tool that we are going to be looking at is Sculptris Pro. Sculptris Pro is an awesome tool that we can just toggle on with a quick button press at the top of our screen. If you have the Move brush selected, which I do by default when I start up ZBrush, just grab any other brush. I'm going to be using the snake hook brush here at first, which you can just find by hitting BSH on your keyboard, and that'll select the snake hook brush. So just go ahead and toggle on Sculptris Pro mode at the top of your screen, and we're just going to be starting with a sphere here and starting to work with this. So I'm just going to pull this around a couple times, and I'll even turn on polyframe mode over here on the right side of my screen so you guys can see what's going on with the geometry. So you'll notice that our geometry is kind of updating on the fly rather quickly, and based actually on the size of my brush is determining the density of that geometry. So I'm just kind of pulling this out into a quick shape. I don't know, maybe we can aim for something a little bit more like our little pit viper dude over there. So a little bit wider as it goes back, you know, a little classic kind of diamond shape. I don't really have an idea of what we're going to be creating other than just kind of playing around with a couple different references here. Like I said, more of what we're going to be doing tonight is going to be focusing on the actual tool. So as you can see, the more I move this around, the more the geometry starts to kind of on the fly update pretty quickly. And that's what's awesome about Sculptris Pro. Sculptris Pro kind of gets rid of a lot of the barriers to entry when it comes to ZBrush, as the software can be, you know, a little tough to get around in the beginning. When you're in those early stages, some things are a little bit harder to, you know, figure out because a lot of it's different. But after you really get in and start playing with it, it really starts to make sense pretty quick, and everything starts to kind of speed up. Sculptris Pro tends to make that initial difficulty curve, I think, a lot more simple. Let me check on chat really quick here, just to make sure we are good. I think we're good, but I'll leave that open here really quick. Fred Marquis, what's going on, man? Welcome back. Glad to have you here. So, like I said, Sculptris Pro makes that barrier to entry, I think, a lot more simple, a lot more easy to kind of get around. It kind of makes what you are doing more akin to working with clay and ZBrush, which is a lot of the idea here when we are sculpting in ZBrush. The more, I think, the more barriers to entry that we can kind of eliminate, the easier it will be for people to just kind of pick up this tool and get creating as quick as possible. So we've created a really basic, quick kind of diamond shape here. And let's say this is too high of a resolution because it's kind of really bumpy and gross. I can just increase my draw size. And by the way, I'm holding the space bar to pull that menu up. Draw size is also up here at the top of your screen. But we can just make a really big draw size and hold the shift key and start smoothing out some of our geometry. And we can do that to kind of simplify the form and just make things a little bit more clean. I tend to like to keep things as clean as I can, but typically in the early stages, it's really not that big of a deal. It doesn't really matter. So we'll kind of go ahead and continue on from here. I'm going to be using a clay brush next, my personal Folly clay brush, which is a little bit similar to a clay tubes, I would say. It's a little bit more clean and it uses a couple auto masking. Typically, I'm not using that right now because of Sculptris Pro, and a couple other features to make it just a little bit more clean and easier to work with. Is this the latest version of ZBrush? Actually, no. I am on 2019.1.1, and I think there's a .1.2 that is a stability release. I don't know if there's anything else that is in that update off the top of my head. There might be the little split screen update, and that might have been in 1.1. I'm not really sure off the top of my head, like I said. I just haven't run the Z upgrader update or whatever it's called yet because I don't really crash that often and I don't really need this stability update. But if that does start occurring, I absolutely will get that quick update. It's more of just I haven't had the time to press the quick button. What's going on, George? George Andreas, maybe. I don't know. Welcome to the stream. And everybody else that is now joining us. Hope you guys are having a good night. Or maybe even good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Go ahead and shout out where you guys are tuning in from while we're continuing on here. I'm over on the general East Coast. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, just south of it a little bit, actually. But we are working right now with Sculptris Pro. We're going to be looking at a couple other tools tonight to work with and manipulate geometry, but this is where we're starting. Trying to keep it very beginner-friendly tonight as we continue on. So we're starting to, again, I'm using that clay brush to start manipulating my form, start to get something a little bit, just, you know, some more secondary form on top of this, just kind of playing around with some shapes. If we want, we can go back to our snake hook brush. I'm really liking this guy down here. He's looking really cool. So maybe we can use our snake hook brush to start pulling out some secondary shapes over here. Some like horns or antlers or spines, you know, whatever the heck you want to call these, and just start kind of playing around with that. Let me check on my other chat here really quick to make sure we are cool. I think we are good. Awesome. Cool. And I didn't have the Sculptress button in the first 2019. I guess I need to download the update. So you might have a custom UI. It's up here by default, or you can find it in your stroke menu, I believe. So stroke, Yes, Sculptris Pro, and you'll find that button right here. So you can toggle that on and off in there, and then there's a couple settings in here that we'll talk about in just a moment. You can also adjust these. These are kind of the every brush feature that you work with here. There are also a couple different settings that you can work with to adjust brushes individually, which is really, really nice. So yeah, let's continue on here with some spikes. So Sculptris Pro came out in 2018, so if you guys are on 2018 or later, yeah, you will have this feature to play around with. I believe it's 2018. But if you have 2019, you'll for sure have Sculptris Pro. Just got ZBrush at Comic-Con last week and super excited to learn how to use the program. Mr. Nice Guy, well, welcome. This is a perfect tutorial for you then. Perfect live stream to join us on. So if you guys are brand new here, I'm not going to go over stuff like navigation and really, really early stuff today, just because I think that would take a little bit too long. So we're looking at Sculptris Pro here tonight. We're going to be looking more at DynaMesh and ZRemesher a little bit later, but we're going to start with the big three and kind of go from there. If you guys want to check out some more cool tutorials or just more of my content, you guys can check out my YouTube channel. Just Google Follygon or type Follygon into YouTube and you will find the rest of my stuff. But yeah, we're working on, what were we doing? Just kind of pulling out some quick little shapes here, something similar to this guy. And we're just kind of playing around, experimenting. We don't really have a destination in mind, just a couple quick references and playing around with some cool tools. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to use something a little bit more advanced here. I'm going to use some masking features. Specifically, I'm going to be using the mask lasso. So if you hold the Control key and click up here, you will see a host of different mask brushes. By default, you'll have the mask pen. I'm using the mask lasso right now. You can hold the Control key to activate that and start creating a quick little mask. And I'm going to do that to just do something quick here. Whoops, and we kind of pulled all of that. Let's make that a little bit more of a clean selection so we don't screw up the geometry up there too much. And I'm just going to make that a little, ooh, we got it again, a little bit longer. It's kind of looking like a finger or something. That will be our neck. If we want, we could use an inflate to kind of thicken that up a little bit, and I think I will do that just a tad. So we'll go ahead and start there, just kind of giving us some more volume to play around with. And let's get back on up to our head. We'll go back to our clay brush, I think. And let's continue on around here in this area to kind of play with some different shapes. I really liked this kind of mouth shape around here. That's probably something we'll do a little bit later with DynaMesh. So let's continue looking at a couple other cool things that we can do with Sculptris Pro. So like I said, Sculptris Pro is awesome for just updating that geometry on the fly. We can just get in here, and if we turn on Shift F, our polyframe view, you can see how that is updating nice and quick there whenever we sculpt on that, if you're just joining us. Let's go ahead and look here at our eye cavity and maybe just kind of start carving in a little bit to start creating some kind of eye socket where we can insert some more geometry. I'm going to click up here on Append and grab a Sphere 3D. We'll just grab our Sphere 3D, and there is a 3D gizmo that you guys can use and play around with. I like using the old school transpose line though, so I'm just going to grab this and go ahead and get him into position really quick here, just using the default move, scale, and rotate and all those cool features up there. So we'll just kind of take our little sphere and begin positioning our quick eyeball in here. So get that placed. And then down here under Geometry, Modify Topology, I'm going to click on Mirror and Weld to get a second eyeball over on our other side. Awesome. So we got that really quick, really simple. And now we can continue on with the rest of our geometry here. I'm going to use a Damien Standard brush or a Sharp Soft brush, really anything. You could even use a standard brush here to kind of carve in and start creating some kind of additional secondary surface turn. There's a lot of different options here. But we just want to start getting some kind of secondary shape there. And I am wanting to go ahead and start opening up our little character's mouth here, so I'm going to be doing that next. Let's check on chat though, just to make sure that we did not miss anything here. Full of energy today, that's right. Yes. I haven't streamed in a couple weeks. I was off last week working on some stuff. So I'm back now. I'm ready. I'm ready to do some more streaming. Love the shapes you give your models. I'm trying your technique of separating the lower jaw to make the lips. It's very useful. Yes, I love splitting my mouth, and that's actually what I'm about to do just right now. Is Sculptris Pro a separate program from the perpetual ZBrush program? No, it is not. There is a software called Sculptris, which is something, I believe Pixelogic acquired it like within the past 10 years, maybe even more, which was very akin to the sculpting that we're looking at right now. I'm not sure if it was OpenGL or what it was made in, but there's some other similar OpenGL sculpting softwares that you can find online that I've seen in the past. But the Sculptris Pro is a mode right here at the top of your screen that you can just toggle on and off whenever you want to make your brushes dynamically adjust the topology on your model, which is really, really cool. And I'll continue using it here a little bit more so you can kind of see how that works as we continue to play with this. But yeah, as you can see, I can just kind of continue pooling on the geometry and see how it's kind of recreating new topology as I go. Very, very, very cool stuff. I love playing around with this tool. It's great for doing quick blockouts, really just a ton of different stuff. So we'll just kind of start pinching in here. I want to start just getting some more form over on this top brow. I'm not really sure, like I said, what I'm going for, but just to get a little bit more form up here, let's just get a little messy, right? Let's just start sketching around, playing with that. And now, I think, is probably a good time for us to open up our character's mouth. Now, I could do this with Sculptris Pro, but I actually think it's going to be a lot easier to do with DynaMesh. So DynaMesh is the second kind of main polygon adjusting tool, let's say, for ZBrush, the one that we're going to be looking at tonight. We're going to be looking at Sculptris Pro, DynaMesh, and ZRemesher. So let's head on over into DynaMesh next. DynaMesh is available in your tool palette under Geometry DynaMesh. There are a few different settings in here that we can play around with, but really all we're going to look at tonight is DynaMesh and the resolution slider. And let's just go ahead and click on DynaMesh. Let's try maybe around 300 or so for our resolution and see what kind of result that gives us. That is way too dense. So let's try the default of 128. Awesome. Okay, that is looking much better to me. So I'm going to toggle off Sculptris Pro while we do this because I don't want that to get in the way. We don't need to use both tools at the same time, although we could. So essentially what DynaMesh does, as you can see, it dynamically redistributes your polygons across your mesh. Hence DynaMesh, dynamic mesh. Sculptris Pro, I would argue, is maybe a little bit more dynamic, but DynaMesh has a lot of benefits that Sculptris Pro does not. DynaMesh will automatically make geometry watertight. So if I have my geometry open on one side and I activate or rerun DynaMesh, which you can do just by control clicking and dragging on your canvas, not on your model, that will not do it. That will just create a mask. You have to do it on your canvas. You can see how that closes off the hole. So now my mesh is watertight. So it's great for 3D printing. For a lot of different reasons, actually. But another cool thing that DynaMesh can do is it can create Booleans. And a Boolean, if you don't know, is a really cool tool, and we're going to look at it right now. So I am going to append a cube 3D here. And instead of using this cube, this one's a little bit too dense. I'm going to scroll down here into Initialize and just click on QQ, okay? And that means it's just a quick cube. It's a little bit lower topology, and that's probably perfect for what we need. There's this awesome little transparent button over on the side of my screen that I am going to click, and then I am going to go ahead and get this in here. I am just going to essentially create a Boolean piece of geometry. And this is a very, very rudimentary use of Booleans, but it will get the point across. So there are more than a few ways to do Booleans in ZBrush. There is actually a better way than DynaMesh, but I'm going to show you the original way with DynaMesh first. So to activate this original version of DynaMesh, or of Booleans in ZBrush, I am going to set this piece of geometry, this cube that I've stretched out, to negative. And you can do this by clicking this little toggle right here next to this one. So this is positive, this is negative, and this is difference, if you are familiar with Booleans. And then what I'm going to do is select my top mesh, scroll on down to merge. Where is it? Merge down. Just click on OK. And then I'm going to run DynaMesh again. And I have an extra little cube turned on there because I duplicated it. But you can see now that I have subtracted that geometry from my original mesh. So hence a Boolean operation. So I could have added it with a positive Boolean, but in this case I have subtracted it. So now I have a piece of geometry, and I could mask this off. And I'll just do a quick little mask, and then I can rotate to open up my mouth. And for some reason we hopefully did not crash. We might have crashed on our little rotate there. Might have made the ZBrush gods angry. So essentially what we've done is we've done a quick little Boolean to subtract some geometry in the mouth, and I was just attempting to rotate the hinge of essentially what would be our jaw, but it looks like we are not in a good situation here. So I am going to just go ahead and kill the program and reopen up ZBrush here, and we'll get right back to where we were. So that was the DynaMesh Boolean, but next we're going to be looking at a little bit of a better way to do Booleans in ZBrush. So let me grab my recovered tool, and thankfully ZBrush has actually recovered that right where we left off. So the quick save feature in ZBrush, if you are not familiar with it, it's this little button up here. You can click that whenever you want, and it'll do a quick little, well, a quick save of your project, and you can find the rest of those in your lightbox under quick save. And you can see I have a bunch of other projects up in here that have been quick saved. So let me show you guys the better way to do a Boolean in ZBrush. So I'm just going to Control click, clear my mask, texture, load spotlight. Let me grab my cool reference images again, wherever they are. Boom, awesome. All right, let's get back to it. And let me check on chat before we go ahead and continue on here real quick. Ooh, come on, there we go. Let's turn perspective back on as well. Doom, what's going on? Welcome back. The quick save button. Yeah, it's just a button that says quick save. I'll minimize. I got a little too small. Whoa, that is a little too trippy for me. Whoop. The stream overlay is in the way, so as you can see, quick save, it's a little button up here. You can click that whenever you want. Just says quick save, pretty easy to spot. Preferences, quick save is where you can go to find your maximum duration and restoration. So essentially the restoration, this one doesn't really matter all that much because you really only want quick saves when you're working. So this slider, you know, not super important, but essentially what this number says is that every 20 minutes while you are sculpting in ZBrush, ZBrush will perform a quick save for you automatically. So if you have that happening a little bit too often or not often enough, you can come in here and edit that quick save slider. All right, again with the trippy little screen tearing. So I'm going to very quickly close up our mouth here very quickly. And we can maybe look at how to do that later. But I just want to do this really quick so we can get back to this spot. All right, so I still have that geometry here. And remember, we just subtracted that to create an open mouth using DynaMesh. But there's a better way to do Boolean operations in ZBrush, and it's what's called Live Boolean. And we can activate that, let me refresh that, by just toggling this little button up here, Live Boolean. So once that is toggled, Live Boolean is ready to go. All we have to do is set up the Boolean meshes. So we're going to do the same exact thing that we did before. We are going to set this mesh to negative, and voila, there we go. We got our Boolean already happening. So this is a pre-visualization of what Booleans will look like after they occur. So you can actually sit here and edit this mesh on the fly. So check this out. I can just move this around wherever I want. I can make this deeper. I can sculpt on this geometry. I can do whatever I want with this, really. I can poly model it. You know, sky's the limit. What's awesome here, though, is that everything is a pre-visualization of what you want to happen. This tool is a million times better than DynaMesh in terms of creating Boolean operations. I still use DynaMesh Booleans, though, for lots of quick little things, whether that be, you know, hollowing out something or adding geometry, combining stuff really quick. Typically, I'm working in DynaMesh in a lot of those stages anyway, so DynaMesh and Booleans with DynaMesh are still definitely very helpful and very applicable to your workflow. I would use live Booleans here if I am trying to create something either hard surface or something where I want a lot more accuracy, typically. Or if I want to experiment and pre-visualize stuff, I might pre-visualize it with a live Boolean like I'm doing right now, and then later on I might actually just DynaMesh it and create a Boolean with it that way too. So if we want this to actually be geometry, because it's not right now, if I turn on solo mode, you can see that I still have this as a solid piece of geometry. It's just a pre-visualization. I can come down here under Tool, Boolean, and click on Make Boolean Mesh. So if I click on that, it is going to calculate really, really quick because we don't have too many polys here. You know, only 250,000 polygons, so, you know, it's pretty quick. And then we got our piece of geometry here, and it has combined our eye into our mesh, which I actually didn't want. I should have made that not visible so it didn't happen. But it has also subtracted the geometry from the mouth. So very cool stuff. I am actually going to delete that because, you know, we don't want our eyeball in there. And you know what? I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way with a quick DynaMesh because that seemed to work pretty well before. So just DynaMesh that out, and there we go. We got our quick little mouth. And hopefully now we can do a quick little mask and rotate for our jaw without breaking ZBrush. Cool, it worked this time. So we can go ahead and start opening that up and continue to sculpt on this. So, because we have some geometry kind of stretching here, and we have this kind of hole happening in our geometry, you can kind of see how that's tucking in there, and it's creating some pretty nasty geometry, some nasty errors. And you might have a situation where you have a bunch of different holes in your geometry, like what I'm seeing right now. So that can be caused by having too thin of geometry. I recommend trying to avoid thin geometry as much as you can. So if we want to fix this, DynaMesh is also a great tool for this. I can just go ahead and run a DynaMesh. It's going to fix and close up all those holes, and then through here where this geometry was nice and close together, it's going to go ahead and seal that up as well. So we can just go ahead and blend between those if we want. We can maybe lower our DynaMesh resolution because things are a little bit too high, I think. So we can maybe decrease our resolution slider. That's in my quick little hotkey menu down there. But of course that is still in Tool Geometry, DynaMesh Resolution, which you can find right there. So we'll leave that where it is. Turn that back to 64 or so. And yeah, let's go back to Sculptris Pro for a little bit, because I think we can still benefit a lot from that, and just kind of start sculpting some more secondary shapes on here. But let me go ahead and check in again on chat to make sure we don't have any questions before we move on here. So I'm coming from sculpting in Blender. How simple would it be to convert my Blender models to ZBrush? It's as simple as exporting it. I would recommend just doing a simple OBJ export and then importing them into ZBrush if you want to continue sculpting on them in ZBrush. I agree. I think Blender is a great starting out option, but if you guys want the best of the best when it comes to sculpting tools, ZBrush is undefeated. It's where it's at. Axon, what's going on? Greetings from Peru. Well, welcome. Which one do I prefer, DynaMesh or Sculptris Pro? It's not really a matter of preference. I think both of them are very good at different things. I would say that I use DynaMesh more, but that's not because I prefer it. It's just because with my particular workflow, DynaMesh tends to have more uses. So I actually have a video kind of going through a lot of the benefits and negatives of all these tools that's coming out tomorrow on my YouTube channel. If you guys want to go check that out, just go subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is just Follygon. So that'll be out tomorrow at some point once I finish editing that video. But we're going to be talking a little bit about that topic some more tonight. So if you guys have any questions about those in terms of specifics, I'd be happy to answer those. So we're talking about Sculptris Pro, DynaMesh, and ZRemesher tonight. One of those, it's not a matter of one being better than the other. It's that, you know, all of them are really good at different things. And we'll be talking more about ZRemesher here soon, but let's go ahead and continue to stick with Sculptris Pro and DynaMesh a little bit longer here. So let's just go ahead and continue maybe sculpting here, carving in a little bit, playing with some more shapes here. Just kind of build up some secondary forms, some more volume. Are there any cool shapes that we want to incorporate into here? I liked the idea of incorporating some of this stuff here. Let me grab my snake hook and boop, 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 boom. That should do for now. Okay, so let's get back into Sculptris Pro, grab our snake hook, and I think I'm going to exaggerate this form a little bit more, because I think this will be much more dragon-like, if that's kind of the direction that we want to aim, if we go for more exaggeration. And with that, let's grab the snake hook here and just do a quick mask. And let's see here. What do I want to do? I'm going to mask off all of that. And I'm going to use my move brush because I don't really want the geometry to tessellate through there quite yet. Whoops. And there we go. I just did it. Let me fill that back in. Ooh, and here we go. So here's one of the issues that I don't really like with Sculptris Pro, and it's just kind of a natural thing that will happen. Because you are not allowed to use, because Sculptris Pro cannot use auto masking features, you can't use things like back face masking. So you have to be a little bit careful that you don't have something like that occur that just did. So a little bit of a necessary evil to use the amazing tool that is Sculptris Pro. So we'll continue filling in some of this, and I'm just kind of experimenting with some different shape language up through here. And I kind of want this to be a lot thicker as it goes back. It's still pretty thin, much too thin for my liking. And there we go. And we'll kind of start to round this back out a little bit. I do like the kind of hump on the back, and maybe we can do some kind of cool fin or something back here. We'll play around with it. You know what? Maybe something like that. We'll just leave that there for now, and we'll take another look at it later. So let's get some more of these cool kind of fin or secondary shapes on here. If we want to play around with doing some horns, I think the head is looking pretty basic in terms of shape. So let's see if we can incorporate some more cool things here. Let's go ahead and do another mask around this area. And go ahead and just start getting some more volume through here. And I'm going to break a few things, but we're in the early stages, so if you are going to experiment and break some stuff, now is the time to do it for sure. And sorry for the 101 questions. No problem at all. That's what we're doing tonight, basically. Looks too happy. Looks too happy of a snake or dragon. I agree. We'll get rid of that smile. What's going on, CBN 3D? If you activate back face masking, does it happen anyway? So you can't, like I said, you can't use Sculptris Pro with any auto masking features, and back face masking is one of those auto masking features. So unfortunately, it's just not possible. If I were to turn that on, you would see that it would the little toggle up here would just kind of turn off, much like it does with your move brush. So we want to avoid toggling that on for right now. Let's go ahead and I kind of want to play around with this dude's mouth in some way and kind of like really open it up, or like really try to break it and make it look very very foreign here. So let's play around with that. Let's try to really open this guy up all the way there. Maybe even more than 90, just a little bit. You can see that the geometry is kind of freaking out in this area. DynaMesh, again, great for fixing some of that. But for now, let's just kind of carve in here, start getting some of this filled out, maybe use some inflate. This is definitely where I would personally try to stay away from Sculptris Pro as we start getting into the super thin stuff. Not a good place to be with Sculptris Pro for sure. Thin geometry, not a fan there. All right, so let's get some quick extra shapes up here in the head and maybe try to get some more thinnage going on. And I think our eyes are looking way too small now that we're starting to do that. So let's go ahead and scale these up. I've toggled the local sim button over here so that we can start scaling these up more uniformly along our axis. So from the front, I don't have a perspective on because I want to be able to see some of the different shapes that I'm playing around with right now and start to kind of play around with how visible those eyes would be from the front view. So kind of playing around with that right now. I'm really liking some of the cool shapes that we're getting through here. We can start sculpting that lid, that top form back up. We can even play around with something like a pinch brush. If you guys are not familiar with that, just press B, P, search for that pinch brush, and it should work pretty similarly to what I'm using right here. I'll just kind of carve in a little bit, maybe get some more form. I'm really liking some of this stuff. And let's go ahead and lean that front part down a little bit more just to kind of bake in a little bit of some angry expression, just enough to kind of start getting it to work. And I kind of did this a little bit on accident, but we like to experiment with as many happy accidents as we can. So if we can get some cool shapes out of this geometry, I think that would be pretty cool. And I think this might be another great place where we can start playing with creating a fin. So I'm just going to kind of pull that up through here a little bit, go back to my pinch brush, and continue trying to thin that out. And some of this geometry is getting a little bit too warped here, but I think we're starting to get somewhere. And I really want to, like I said, push these shapes really far. So let me grab just my move brush and do a quick little mask of this area here. And let me unmask all of that really quick. And I'm just swapping back and forth between a couple different mask brushes there really fast. All right. So we're starting to pull and stretch our geometry. Whenever that starts to happen, you're either going to have to go back over it with Sculptris Pro or use something like DynaMesh. We'll be looking at ZRemesher, like I said, here in a little bit, but for now, we should be good to just continue playing with this. All right, and now that we've really started to push that, let's go ahead and grab these and use that scale feature yet again. We don't want to mask you, just these guys here. Turn local sim back on, give these a little scale up, a little bit more of a scale up. We'll rotate them out, maybe do some quick pushing and pulling around, and now we are starting to get somewhere with our exaggeration. So I want to play around with exaggerating a lot of these shapes quite a bit. All right. And our geometry around here, like I said, starting to get more and more warped. So we are probably getting to a place where we can at least go through the process of showing off Sculptris Pro and how to work with some of those tools. So we'll do that here in just a moment. I'm going to spend just a moment kind of cleaning up some of the geometry around here so that we actually have something a little bit more visually interesting, because right now we're starting to just get a little bit uncontrolled and I am talking just a little bit too much for my brain to keep up. And I will check on chat for questions and comments here in just un momento. So a little trick there with the move brush to turn on backface masking. You can find that in your brush palette under auto masking. It's a great little feature if you guys want to play around with it. It works particularly well with the move brush for kind of manually inflating geometry is a good way to think of it from one direction. It has a lot of other different uses, but that's probably a good way to initially wrap your head around the tool, to kind of think of it in that regard. All right, and I'll start to work on some more of that form there in just a moment. One thing that really helps me when I'm working on some stuff with with eyes is to add a little bit of paint to them. So I'm going to do that really quick. I do want to make sure that Sculptris Pro is off for this. I just want to keep this geometry nice and clean like we have it right now. So I'm going to select the toy plastic material. You can find this in your material menu under, I believe it's under the standard materials. Yes, it is down here, toy plastic. And I'm going to turn on mRGB up here with any brush and just click on fill object. And I'm going to switch to a black color and just kind of paint in a quick little pupil iris combo here. And maybe we could make that more kind of slit shaped later on. But more so than anything, I'm going to make sure that this is facing a good direction and that the placement is nice. Let's just go ahead and do that. And now I can really start making sure that the geometry around here is starting to better kind of make room and hold this eye. So I think doing some quick little poly paint, even if it's something really simple like what I just did there, will help you a lot kind of moving forward with some of this. So we'll just kind of fill in a little bit more here, kind of smooth that out, kind of sculpt up a little bit there, play around with that shape, maybe do some more stuff there later, maybe do some carving in, and like I said, well, Sculptris Pro is off. It's not what we want. And like I said, we can start to get some cool shapes in here with DynaMesh in a little bit. So, before we continue on, let's go ahead and take a look at ZRemesher so that we can kind of get that off our plate here real quick. And we got a little bit of some messy stuff back here and a little bit messy geometry just about everywhere. But that is where ZRemesher is really going to come in handy. So ZRemesher is an auto topology or auto retopology tool. It is not going to get you, perfect animation ready topology. It will get you pretty dang close for an automatic tool. It's one of the best auto topology tools I've ever played around with. It's the best auto topology tool that I know of, and you can do some really cool stuff to actually get even better results. Even really, like I said, really close to animation ready topology, but animation ready topology just requires that manual, like by hand touch for very specific deformations, and everything's going to be completely different. So in that regard, it's not going to be animation ready. Get some Gex the Gecko. Nice, yes. How did I decrease mask edges? So if you create a mask, you can control click on your mesh to blur the mask in one direction. If you hold Control and Alt and click on your mesh, it will sharpen the mask. These options are of course down in the tool masking palette down here, such as blur, clear, grow mask, all sorts of different options. There are of course hotkeys for all of these, but that is where I would recommend you go ahead and check out and play around with some of those and maybe create some custom hotkeys for yourself. Yes, the transpose line, it's an amazing tool, super powerful. I love the transpose line. I actually think it's better than the 3D gizmo in more ways than one. But that is neither here nor there. I have a video on my YouTube channel about it. You guys should check it out. There's a bunch of cool stuff that you can do with the transpose line. So we're getting very derpy with our mesh. So let's go ahead and clean it up. And let's see. Spit my drink when it went to the front-facing view. Yes. Rah. Gecko for sure. All right, so let's go ahead and toggle off the visibility on our eyeballs. And we'll just kind of, whoa, didn't mean to do that. We'll just grab our move brush and kind of play around with this geometry. So let's turn on polyframe. You can see that there's a lot of different densities of geometry going on here. So what do we want to do? We want to kind of clean this up and make it a little bit easier to work with. This might come at a different level in the kind of workflow, but I'd like to at least show it off now just to make sure, because we're about at the hour mark and I want to make sure I get to it earlier on. So I'm going to duplicate my mesh just so I can have an extra piece in case I need it. And I'm going to scroll down in the tool menu down to ZRemesher. And we're just going to go ahead and click on ZRemesher. And we are going to just use the default settings with that. So it should be at a target poly count of 5, which is about 5,000, but because X symmetry is turned on, it'll be a little bit higher. It'll be a little over double. So you can see that's about 12 or so. So ZRemesher has redistributed our polygons much like DynaMesh, but as you can tell, we have some nice clean quads through a lot of this area. And, you know, it's not perfect. Like I said, it's an auto topology tool. You guys saw how quick it ran, pretty dang fast. But there are a lot of things that we can do to make this tool even better to work with. So at this point, I could start cleaning this up and ZRemeshing this and, you know, all sorts of different stuff. I can even project detail from one piece of geometry back onto this to start cleaning it up even further. But what I would like to do is just kind of start sculpting with this geometry a little bit, so you guys can get an idea of the workflow. So here we have this piece. If I cannot, for some reason, get the level of resolution that I need, I can always add a subdivision level. And you can do that down under Tool, Geometry, Divide, or you can just press Ctrl D on your keyboard. That is the hotkey for that. So D and Shift D step up and down through your subdivs. There's also a slider over here that will allow you to do that. So you can kind of play around with doing a lot of those, or, you know, what I recommend typically is only increasing your resolution when you absolutely need to. So you'll be sculpting along here, and let's say you get to a point where you need some cleaner geometry, or I'm sorry, some more geometry to do something specific. So that is when you would press Ctrl D, subdivide up, and now you can have some more polys to kind of start working with and continue sculpting on from there. So a lot of awesome things that you can do here with with ZRemesher to kind of make the geometry a little bit easier to work with, so you can get something nice and clean. There's one that you can use that I use pretty frequently called polygroups, ZRemeshing with polygroups turned on, and I'll show that off in just a minute after I just go through and do a quick little, you know, smooth pass on this guy. We don't really need to do a lot here. We'll kind of play with it more in just a minute. More of the later half of this, I'll just kind of continue sculpting on this and be available for questions, but I want to make sure, like I said, that we get through all the tools that we mentioned here at the beginning. So from here, what we want to do is get something a little bit better, a little bit more, you know, closer to something that could be, quote, animation ready. So what we will do is just delete our lower subdivision levels. We don't really need them. So you could be playing around with DynaMesh, you could be playing around with Sculptris Pro. It really doesn't matter. I've just gone ahead and DynaMeshed this so I can show you that it doesn't matter. And what I'm going to use is our good friend, the mask lasso again. So holding the Control key to create some masks. And I am specifically going to create a mask around my jaw right through here. And after I do that, I'm just going to press Ctrl W on my keyboard. So make sure that polyframe is on so that you can see what's happening. Ctrl W will create a new polygroup. So if you remember, I said we're going to be ZRemeshing with polygroups. So that is one. I'll Control Shift click to select this polygroup so that I can continue creating some different selections. I'll create one up here for the head. So we got our head, our jaw. I'll press Ctrl W again. So Ctrl W is the hotkey that will polygroup whatever you have masked, or if you don't have anything masked, it will polygroup whatever is visible in your currently selected subtool. So if I press Ctrl W right now, it'll polygroup everything exactly the same. So there's that. Those are a couple different polygroups set up very quickly. Let's go ahead and look at what kind of results we get with this ZRemesh. And I'll do one more through here in the body, just so we can say we have a couple more. So we'll go down into, again, Tool Geometry, ZRemesh, and turn on Keep Groups. Ooh, and you know what? I'll do one more, actually, just so I can show you an idea if you wanted to create a character's face or something like that, and you were working on the eye area or something like that. Let's say you wanted to get some edge loops around an eye to make it animate in that area a little bit more easily. I'll just re-DynaMesh that fill in, and I will use a mask pen this time to just fill in this area really quick with a couple quick mask selections, and just mask that off there, and of course Ctrl W to polygroup that. So cool, we got some different polygroups. It looks really messy, it looks really weird, kind of like clown paint, but we've got Keep Groups turned on, we have ZRemesh turned on. I'm going to lower my target poly count down to 1 and click on ZRemesh. We'll just let that calculate for a second. And once this is finished, you will see that we will get some nice, clean edge loops in some specific areas that we polygrouped. So this is great for creating some quick selections. I could have done some more, polygroups through these areas to create some different edge loops. I could have done it to separate some different stuff here, different stuff with the fins and stuff that we're kind of pulling out and playing around with. But you guys can see pretty quickly how you could use this to get something quite a bit more clean and easy to work with. So those are just, 4 quick little polygroups that I've set up. I think I have a really good example here with one of my base meshes here. So this is just a simple stylized character base mesh that I created a while back. It's available on my Gumroad, gumroad.com/Follygon. But if we look up here in the face, there's all these crazy clown colors going on, but these are the different polygroups set up to allow ZRemesher to create some nice, relatively clean automatic edge loops in these areas. So you end up getting some pretty clean results from this kind of stuff. This does have some subdivisions on top of it. This is just nice, simple, quick and clean geometry to kind of play around with. It is also what I used for some of these recent characters that you guys can go check out on my ArtStation. I think I might have him in my Quicksaves, so I might import him really quick, but this is a concept, 2D concept from Louis Gadea, and of course the sculpt by myself, but I used a very similar technique to what I just showed you on that stylized character for his face, and I did the same thing, of course, for both of these characters' faces as well as a lot of the different accessories and clothing and all that good stuff on their body. But yeah, let's get back on here into our dragon, and essentially what I am going to do is continue using these tools for the rest of our time. We have roughly an hour left. I don't think anybody else is streaming tonight, though. I don't think so. No. So over on the schedule, if you guys have never checked out pixologic.com/ZBrushLive, that is where you guys can find the schedule for all the people that are going to be streaming here. Ashley is the next person to stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. PST, so definitely check out her stuff tomorrow. But tonight there's nobody else, so maybe we can go a little bit longer than what I'm scheduled for, depending on what we end up doing with this. So I am going to just go ahead and do some sculpting here, and kind of talk about my process as I go, and you guys can feel free to interrupt me at any point. All right, let's get to it. So we could maybe start over. We got some pretty derpy stuff, but why would we do that when we can kind of continue and turn our derpy guy? I actually really like this this baby crocodile alligator thing. I don't know if that's real. It almost looks fake. It's really cute though. So I saw that and I was like, ooh, I kind of want to do that. So I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go with this. Like I said, if we wanted to go cutesy or whatever, but we'll just kind of play around here. I don't really like our fin up there, so I'm just going to delete that, and we'll go ahead and run a quick DynaMesh because that closes holes as we have seen before there. And let's go ahead and play around with some different shapes in the mouth. So I want to kind of play around with getting some of these cool, like riveted shapes in the mouth here, in the lip area. It almost, I'm not sure if they're going all the way through or not. It looks like they are, which is pretty buck wild, but we'll kind of play around with that. I'm also going to turn off perspective as I do this, and we can go from there. I was actually thinking it might be cool to make this into kind of like a, what do they call it in D&D? It's like the dragon humanoid race. They might just be called like Dragonkin or something like that. I can't remember. But we might do something like that. We'll see. I'm gonna do a couple more advanced things here really quickly, but if I do something too fast or you're confused and want to know more, stop me at any point and I'll explain exactly what I'm doing. And what do we want to do with our eyes? So I really like the Chameleon Eyes. I think that's really, really cool. And I wanted to try something similar with that, and also get the eyes facing a bit more forward so that they could be more akin to what we would expect from a predator and less so prey. So predator's eyes face forward, prey eyes on the sides of the head, because prey wants to watch out for predators from all directions, like a chameleon looking every which way at once. So we don't want that. We want predator, dragonus. So we'll go ahead and move those up front, facing forward, and we'll go ahead and start sculpting on this. So, like I said, I thought it would be cool to do something more akin to chameleon eyes, but I'm not really liking the shape language that I am getting up in here. So I would like to start breaking a lot of this, and we're going to start smushing and destroying a lot of the shapes that we've built so far, but I think it's definitely necessary to take a step backwards so that we can take 2 steps forward. So let's see. I would like to get some harder ridged shapes in here as well. I'm also going to start splitting off some more of my geometry, just because it's much easier to work with more subtools than it is to just have one for everything. That's pretty silly when we have the ability to kind of control our geometry in the ways that we do in ZBrush. So you definitely want to have as many splits and stuff as you can, if you can. So I'll be splitting that off for sure back here for one of these fins, and now I can kind of control that separately and continue to work with that. Makes it much, much easier. All right, and we'll just kind of get that fixed up there, and I will do the same thing here for our fin in the middle of our head. And we can kind of control that a little bit more as well. Oof, it's hard to select that though, for sure. Let me do a quick little selecciones. Beautiful. All right, so now we got the base kind of reptile head here. We got a bunch of different geometry. As you can see, we got some holes going on here. Let me just get rid of those. And I'm going to fix a couple brushes with some auto masking features, just to make them a little bit easier for working on some of this thin stuff that we got. And now we can actually get in here and manipulate this shape a little bit more freely without worrying about kind of screwing up everything else. So kind of going a little bit more kind of diamond shape to be in line with some of the rest of our ideas of creating some angularity to our sculpt. So we definitely want to get sharper in a lot of these areas. Whatever that looks like exactly, we'll kind of play around, see what we can come up with. I'm kind of liking some of that shape. I'd like that to transition a bit more gradually, though, up towards the top. Not looking super great right now. We'll start to kind of play with that. And it's starting to kind of get pretty warbly and soft through here. So I'm actually going to ZRemesh this piece to my advantage. So I'm going to, instead of using masking, I'm going to use a slice brush to slice through my geometry. Right down. Let's do something like this. Just like that. And then I'm going to ZRemesh with polygroups. And I'm going to keep that nice and low poly. Super, super low. Low as I can. 0.1. And then I'll use that to my advantage to kind of crease some stuff up here and make this a little bit tighter. And it's a little tough to select that geometry. So I'm going to cheat a little bit here. See if I can delete an end cap or two. Delete an edge loop. The geometry is not really wanting to be our friend. Let's ignore that for now. I'll just kind of clean this up by hand real quick. So this might be something that we want to poly model really quick if we wanted to get some very specific hard surface shape, but we are doing something sharp but also organic. So we don't want to go super super hard surface here. So it's not really necessary, I don't think, to poly model something like this. And let's kind of fix the shape up there. And I'd like to kind of make that a bit thicker, like I said. And go from there. Cool. All right, so let's get some more sharp shape language up through here. See if we can find anything cool. And I want to get some nice pinches. So I'm using the pinch brush right now to kind of play around with these shapes. And we'll DynaMesh as things get too tight, too stretched. Remember, DynaMesh is great for quickly redistributing polygons. We'll kind of play with that, as well as our move brush with move AccuCurve. And essentially what AccuCurve does is it creates a really sharp pull out wherever you use your move brush. Kind of play around with that. I'm kind of liking some of the different kind of shapes that we are getting in this area. So we'll just kind of play around a bit more through here. And I'll just get some really basic kind of pull outs going on here that we will begin to adjust a little bit more later on. But let's just get the basic feel down first. Kind of get that headed in the right direction. And let's see. I'd like to do a little bit of the similar touch up through here, if we can. Kind of pull around with that. Liking the move AccuCurve feeling. And we'll just kind of, whoops, still got that on. Make sure that we have enough room. And then what I want to do here with the eye is maybe try something a little similar to that. Might end up kind of breaking, but I think it'll be fun to try out here. I am also going to widen all of this lower jaw with my transpose line very quickly. Just to make that a little bit more clean. And what's going on here? There we go. Let me just pause for a second. Fred asks, how do you change angles when you slice? So with the slice curve brush, you go ahead and draw that out. So it's just a straight line when you hold Control and Shift and click. If you press the Alt key, it will go ahead and add a little bit of a Bezier curve there. And you can continue to add more of those if you want. Another cool thing that you can do though is draw out your slice and double press Alt, so just 1, 2 really quick, and it'll do a hard turn, which I think is what you are looking for. So Alt or double press Alt to get those two different interactions. George asks, when you sculpt something, do you study shapes, volumes, anatomy before starting to sculpt, or open the program and start sculpting start sculpting from imagination? So a lot of what I do is sculpting from reference. Kind of like what I'm doing right now, but more so I aim for a very specific, I'm aiming typically for a very specific goal. So for example, if you check out my ArtStation, it's just artstation.com/Follygon. We have this character, like I said, it's by Louis Gudet. You guys can check out the 2D design. So here is the 2D concept by Louis. Go check him out. He's got some awesome stuff, some really cool characters. And the 3D character sculpt by myself, like I said, kind of aiming for that character. So typically a little bit more of a specific goal. A lot of the stuff that I do is more so in that style, I would say. In terms of if you are, trying to get in and get to work on something, I don't think you need to study shapes, volume, anatomy, all this stuff before you start sculpting. It depends kind of what your goal is, of course, but if you are trying to do a lifelike, accurate sculpt of anything, or as accurate as you can based on a reference, you shouldn't be studying, all these different things, but instead you should be studying your specific reference, studying your image. And what that looks like, I actually have a video on this, I think that just came out the other day, over on my YouTube channel. The most important thing every 3D artist must know, which is the idea of how to revolve a shape. Here, I'll link this in chat for you guys. And hopefully it goes through. But essentially the video and the idea of the video is about kind of breaking down shapes, much like this, into simplifying the form into something that you can understand. And typically that looks like breaking something down into primitives. And I talk about how there are two different ways that you can do this, or two major things that you can look for. That's one of them, and you guys can check out the video if you want to get some more information on this. I highly encourage you to check it out if it's something that you are interested in, using reference, being good at using reference, learning how to study your image. It's definitely worth knowing, definitely worth watching in my opinion. But yeah, it comes down to studying your reference specifically. If you are going to try to sculpt, like for instance, a human character, I think it's pretty close to useless to just try to study a bunch of anatomy and cram it in your head. What you should instead do, of course, depending on your level of ability, is get sculpting, start getting in, do some drawovers, try to figure out some plane changes, really look for that basic stuff, and keep things as low poly as you can. And when you get stuck in a specific area, then you can go to your anatomy books and everything else and look up some more information from there. So it really just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Really, these topics are a lot deeper and more difficult for me to cover here in just a stream really quick. So like I said, I got a ton of stuff over on the YouTube channel if you guys want to find out more. What are you doing? I just joined. Well, we spent the first half of our stream talking about the three major tools for sculpting in ZBrush, for working with different geometry and kind of manipulating the form. Now we're just kind of sculpting and playing around using those tools, Sculptris Pro, ZRemesher, DynaMesh, those good old pals that we know and love, and starting to get in and kind of play with those a bit more. But I've been not sculpting very much. I've been talking a little bit too much. So I'm going to get in here and do some more sculpting. Absolutely, Fred. My pleasure. Happy to help, man. Alright, so let's see. What do we want to do here with our big snake boy? So let's get a little crazy. Let's grab our move brush, AccuCurve, and start pulling out some more shapes here to get more into some exaggeration. So that's something I really wanted to play around with tonight, and we're not really pushing the bounds on exaggeration. So I'm really actually pretty okay with stretching and breaking some stuff, as long as we end up getting something cool in our, whoa, come back, in our silhouette. And if we can get some layers of these fins, I think that would be pretty sweet. Our geometry is very warped up through here. which isn't necessarily bad for the time being. I guess we'll see. Very hard for me to attempt to sculpt and talk at the same time. So I apologize if I get a little bit quiet here. Feel free to shout out any questions in the chat as we go. Let's see. I'm just going to ZRemesh this a bit lower, get something a bit lower poly, something easier to manipulate, kind of keep messing with our silhouette. So I liked the idea of getting like this really kind of weird offset here with some of these shapes. Just kind of yoinking this around. Maybe this is like a staff or something. It doesn't even have to be necessarily organic, but we can sculpt it that way. We're going to keep everything symmetrical for the time being as well. One tool that I really like playing around with is the pinch brush. While holding the Alt key, it'll start to pinch in on your geometry and you get some really, really cool results. Which is what we are starting to get right now. So the standard pinch brush will push out and pinch your geometry, while the Alt key, if you hold that while you pinch, will still pinch in, but it'll subduct or create a concave surface instead of a convex form. So it's pretty cool. It's very, very simple difference, but it makes a big difference. Some more volume up through here. Just kind of play around with a couple more shapes. I think I'm liking some of that, and we can just leave the rest for now. Cool. So we're getting there, getting somewhere interesting. Takes some time though. Let's I wanted to do something really really exaggerated with this mouth. I don't think we're quite there yet. Let's see. What can we do here? And of course, we're going to need some kind of forked tongue to get in here. So a lot of what I'm looking at is silhouette right now, so kind of just looking at some of the shapes here. Honestly, silhouette's looking a little Gyarados-y to me, but we don't really want to go too far that direction, I guess. Although Gyarados is an awesome, awesome design. It's just too bad about Magikarp. All right, so we're getting some cool warped shapes through here. I'm liking some of this. Let's go ahead and insert a tongue. And looks like my music is paused again. Go ahead and turn that back on. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and insert a tongue in here. Really easy to do. A few different ways to do it. I think I will just duplicate that, grab an IMM primitive brush, and insert a quick sphere. Give it a squash, and give it a yoink out. And I want to do something very similar to what I am doing with the mouth and the body, just kind of this like really crazy jagged shaping everywhere. And I'll probably want to break sim on a lot of this pretty quick, especially with something like a tongue. And a lot of these like really sharp turns because it's looking really cool. These are definitely not sharp enough, so it's not really matching the shape language that we have currently. They're super rounded. So let's like super do some yoinking. Some yoinking on our geometry. That's a very technical term if you're new to the 3D world. You'll be using it a lot in the future. Mention that on your next job interview and you will for sure get it. All right, let's play around here a little bit more. And cool, getting somewhere. I don't really like some of the curves going on here. So what I might actually do is do a couple poly groups like what we were looking at before with the ZRemesher. And get some results that are a little bit easier to manipulate. So I've created some quick poly groups there, and now we can ZRemesh with keep groups. Hopefully get something easier to manipulate. Yeah, I think this poly count's a little bit too high actually, so let me lower that. A little bit closer to what I was looking for. But from the top view, we are 3D artists, so you know, of course, we got to look at this from every angle. Things are getting a little warped up through here, so let's see if we can make this a little visually interesting from every angle. And kind of alternate that shaping so it's not all the same. And for this middle piece, let's kind of go forward a little bit and then back. So again, for all of this, I am using the, or for a lot of this move stuff, I'm using the move Acu curve. Let's work on this area around the eyes, as I think that it is still pretty visually boring right now. I think there's a lot we can do. Let's grab a mech brush. Gonna carve in through there. See what we can accomplish. And we still haven't added any paint to this, but I'm actually okay with that. Kind of have a little bit of a baked in expression right now. Let's try to get rid of that. Awesome. And nothing like a little bit more exaggeration in this area. Really get this silhouette starting to be a bit more visually interesting. So we're definitely getting there. And that really didn't take all too much time there. All that much time, I should say. That's what happens when we actually focus a little bit. Normally when I sculpt on some stuff, I am actually typically sitting in silence, maybe listening to a podcast occasionally, but the more that I can kind of focus my brain on what I'm doing, the better. Yeah, I don't really like that. I'm not liking the continuation of the prongs up into that area too much. So I kind of like keeping that on the face. I think that makes a lot more sense. This is feeling a bit thin, so let's carry the rest of our volume up through there. Just kind of fill that in really quick with our clay. Maybe pinch up through there a little bit. And I'm going to turn on perspective now and just do some quick little corrections to a few different areas, just to make sure we're kind of following the shape language that we have started to integrate into the face. And cool, we're starting to get somewhere. I think maybe this could exist as like a staff. I don't know, I feel like this is something that like Jafar would carry around with him. We could maybe eventually get to like a wooden texture, or something like that. We're still really messy through a lot of this though. But at least we have some direction. Are there any other cool shapes over here that we want to integrate? It's an excellent question. No. think we've kind of landed on something pretty specific here. And if we deviate from that, we might be kind of getting a little bit too messy in our design. All right, let's go ahead and break symmetry just in a few specific areas, such as the tongue here. And I will do a similar thing to what I did with the horns to get some cleaner results, and that is going to be using ZRemesher with keep groups. And I really want that low poly result here. So we'll make sure that we turn that all the way down to 0.1. I really like this mouth. This thing is crazy. I need to, I don't remember what type of snake that was when I was Googling. If anybody knows, let me know what type of snake that is. I'm very interested in learning more about why that thing's mouth looks the way it does. It's pretty cool. Give that one more ZRemesh. Just trying to get something a bit more clean through there so that I can delete. I actually want to delete some geometry. So we're getting into a little bit more advanced stuff here. And like I said, I won't really talk too much in depth about everything just because, oof, I'm getting a little bit too crazy there. Because I want to concentrate is what I was going to say. Sorry, I was concentrating. All right, now we're getting very angular. Awesome. There we go. Actually, that will work. And I'll do a couple quick bevels, maybe through here. See if we can get that going the right way. Maybe keep that one alone, or leave that one alone. That should actually be fine. Oh, come on back. I can manually clean this up and, whoops, recut this a little bit later maybe. But for now, this should kind of get the job done for what I wanted to accomplish there. Starting to get some nice hard turns in our geometry. So starting to get some pretty cool shapes there. If we wanted to 3D print something like this, a lot of these areas would have to be thickened up. There's just too many kind of crazy shapes going on here. All right, and I would like to get some secondary shapes around that bottom portion of the mouth. I would also like to make the top portion a bit more visually distinct, because right now it's pretty boring. It's very uniform, and as we know, uniformity tends to be very boring. So we'll kind of break that up a little bit more. So that's definitely a little bit more unique. Probably push that even further in a couple areas. Awesome. All right, so one thing I want to try through here is adding some inflate to the ridge of the mouth with a curve brush. I don't know how well it'll work with this, but I think it's worth trying. We'll do that, or at least we'll try it here in just a moment. before you end, could you go through the steps to export low poly? Someone could rig the character in Max. So you would not want to, unless you had something in ZBrush that was animation ready, you probably wouldn't want to rig whatever you have. So for example, and I don't know your level of experience or knowledge with Retopo, animation ready topology, but as we pointed out before with ZRemesher, you can get some pretty clean results out of ZBrush, but you can't get stuff that's, you know, perfectly animation ready, because that will always require some kind of human touch, just because there's so many different variations of characters, right? The snake could be an emerald tree boa. Emerald tree boa. I will remember that. I will actually make a note, because like I said, I want to check on that later, figure out what's going on there. So let me write that down real fast. So our dude here, we could never, you know, get this perfectly animation ready using auto topology tools in ZBrush. We would have to do some manual retopo, and there are manual retopo tools in ZBrush, but personally, you know, I would recommend using something else. They're really not, you know, they're not the best. That's the case. So I would recommend something something else. You know, whatever you want to play around with. You know, Maya has some great retopo tools with quad draw and everything else. You know, whatever you end up playing around with, it's up to you. The world is your oyster. But after you have that, if you do for some reason have that in ZBrush, you can simply export your mesh. You can export, and you were saying specifically for Max, so 3ds Max, you could export under here. We got Tool Export, and this will export your currently selected subtool, and you can do that as an OBJ. So you would have to export each of your subtools individually as an OBJ, or if you have everything as a single subtool, all-in-one subtool in ZBrush, you could just do that as one quick OBJ. Another thing that you can use is up in your Z plugin menu, there is the FBX export and import plugin. So you can go ahead and select on that, and as long as Quicksave's not doing its thing, Z plugin, FBX export, import. Go ahead and click on this, and you can go ahead and export and import an FBX file from here directly. And then you can pop that into Max and kind of continue working with it from there. So that would be my recommendation. I would recommend the FBX file. I think it's just a little bit easier in terms of getting everything in one go. But like I said, there's, you know, so many different options. You might be going to something else before Max if you want to do some manual retopo in Maya, or, you know, whatever you end up playing around with. Really, there's more options than I could name. All right, let's continue on here with a couple more cool shapes. Oof, got a big oof from the abnormal termination. We should get a quick save here, so look at that, saving project file in progress, recovered file stored in Quicksave directory. Awesome, so we still got that. Again, if you guys want to check out more of my stuff, just Google Follygon. You'll find my YouTube channel, my Gumroad with all my courses, brushes, etc. Or if you guys are interested in my my newest course, the Appeal Academy, that's just appeal.academy. If you guys are interested in learning how to sculpt some awesome stylized and appealing characters. So check it out, appeal.academy. Let's see if that's saved properly. Up in our quick save directory here, we have a recovered tool, and it looks like everything is there. Awesome. Oh, but my preferences are screwed up. There we go. So occasionally, and I'm not sure what it is, but ZBrush will not load my my hotkeys specifically. So to do that, if that happens to you, go into Preferences, Config, and just click on Restore Custom UI. It'll typically happen after a crash, like what just occurred. So I would guess that it has something to do with that. But let's go ahead and continue on through here. I think we have a much more cool and visually interesting silhouette. I say we go ahead and start breaking symmetry and breaking some of this up even more to kind of create something real cool here. What I am going to do is I'm going to slice off everything from... I'm actually looking at this. The staff, so if I wanted to do a staff, it could kind of be positioned like like that. I kind of like that. So let's cut off maybe everything from here down. And I'll just do a quick little chop. Delete hidden. Close holes. Beautiful. So we'll go ahead and say that this is the head of our staff that we are sculpting. And let's go ahead and start turning off symmetry on just about everything here. So transform, not Z plugin. And we'll just step through these. And toggle off sim. All right, so let's start breaking up this silhouette even more. Grab some AccuCurve again with the move brush. This time we don't have symmetry on, so if we move one side, it's not going to affect the other, which can be a little scary sometimes, but I think it's where stuff starts to really come alive. There are actually a couple parts of the sculpting process where things start to really shine. One is when you break symmetry, start posing is another one, and then when you start to really add color to your sculpt, whether that be through poly paint or texturing materials, whatever. That's where things start to like really start to get pushed to the next level. Alright, so I am starting to just break symmetry in a couple different areas here. And I kind of really like the jagged kind of silhouette breaking that we're getting up there. So I'd actually like to incorporate that a little bit more into the rest of our head, if I can. So we'll kind of pull on a few different areas and really get this thing feeling gnarly. And I'm just trying to not specifically kind of go the opposite direction here with each of these horns, but more so just kind of break it up while also looking at how it kind of lines up with the stuff in the background, this extra layer, and try to make sure that that's all feeling nice and visible. So we can go ahead and turn on our black color to see just our silhouette, and I think that makes it a little bit easier so we can kind of check ourselves to make sure that we're keeping things looking good just based on silhouette. And you know, things are getting a little messy in a couple different areas, but I'm not super worried about too much of that. I think I'm going to keep this pretty symmetrical in terms of form. I'll just kind of keep that as the main piece there in the middle. Kind of getting rid of that. I think it starts to lose a lot of what makes it unique from the profile. So, and a little bit from the front view. So I kind of like that. We'll kind of keep that in place. And let's start kind of really pushing some of this shape here. So got AccuCurve on, good. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing down here in the jowls. A little bit more asym, just to kind of break things up a little bit more. It doesn't have to be crazy. A little bit kind of goes a long way here with this kind of thing. And I think we could maybe work on the way that that is syncing up with the back there. It's kind of blended actually pretty well just with that extra horn there. So maybe we'll keep that. And then up through here, I don't want this to be perfectly straight through here and very symmetrical, so you can kind of see that we're, if I got my transpose line here, we're pretty much parallel from each side. So let's break that up a lot more. And AccuCurve is probably going to be a bit weird here. Let's see. It'd probably be a little bit better if we ZRemeshed this first. But I'm going to get some quick general moves at first. And then we can clean this up after we do that. So just some quick general moves with the move brush. Making sure to keep things as straight as I can. I really Really want to retain that shape language all the way through here. But we will start to get a little warped and a little messy, but that's okay. We can fix that in a bit. So not pushed far enough. Really want to skew that. There we go. Much closer. Much closer to what I'm looking for. All right. So from here, I want to use my slice curve brush. Go ahead and slice through a few of these different parts. And get something a little bit more low poly with a remesh. So if you guys remember me talking about ZRemesher earlier on, I said that we could even project and retain some more information through ZRemesher with projections. So I'm going to show you how we can do that right now. I'm not really liking how thin a lot of this is. I'm wondering if I can just very quickly come through here and just kind of sharpen some of this up really fast. Just some quick, messy, sharp, soft strokes. And I don't really care how those terminate, because a lot of this will get destroyed here shortly. And a little bit too warbly back through here, a little bit too snaky. We want nice hard lines in as many places as we can get them. Ooh, this one is lacking in thickness in general. Let's thicken that boy up. Awesome. Okay. So from here, I'm just going to shift click on my selected subtool. That will hide everything, and I'll just tap it again. It's the eye icon that we are looking for. Turn that on. From here, I will duplicate that, select the top one, and we are going to ZRemesh this. The objective here is that we're going to get something low poly, a little bit more clean, and we'll be able to retain our details that we've sculpted up to this point. You know, details in air quotes because it's not really too crazy or too high res or anything. Let's go ahead and take a look here. And you can see based on our silhouette that, you know, a lot of the stuff is pretty rounded in a lot of these areas. I'm hoping that with our ZRemesh here we can clean up some of that a bit more as well. So now we got something a little bit more low poly here, and this is where the secret good sauce happens. So we are going to take this geometry. We are going to make sure that this piece of geometry is visible as well. I have solo mode turned on so I can see a little bit easier. But as long as the visibility icon is on, we should be good to go. I'll just do a Ctrl D subdivide and a projection. This will take all the form from the other mesh and start projecting it onto here. As you can see, that's starting to happen there. And I'll just kind of subdivide and step up through my projections here really quick. And now we have something with some subdivision levels, which means easier to manipulate. The lower the topology, lower the polygon count, easier to manipulate. Pretty good rule of thumb. And hopefully we don't have a hole in our mesh. Ooh, we do. We do have a hole in our mesh. That's too bad. We'll fix that later on. We got DynaMesh for that. And I could have fixed that before projecting, but I did not see it. So no worries. It'll be pretty easy to correct, like I said. All right, I'm going to add some twist here. And then take another stab at cleaning up this silhouette. I'm just looking at this from as many angles as I can, preferably with perspective off right now, just because it's quite a bit easier to see what's happening. And I am going to tighten up some of the form here really quick. Back up with our pinch brush. Gotta be a little careful with the pinch brush as it tends to warp your geometry pretty quick, but I'll be kind of doing some stuff here with DynaMesh later on, so I'm not super worried about it. It's not like this is sacred geometry or anything like that. All right, so other than that hole, we're in a pretty good place. The direction that we've gone here with the ZRemesh, I'm pretty happy with the direction that this is going. And it's okay if this is a little bit gnarly, because I was wanting to kind of make this out of wood. So if we can get a wooden texture on there later on, I think that would be pretty awesome. So essentially what we are looking at right now, let me grab some quick geometry here. We'll just do a quick cube and complete the length of our staff. And we'll probably hide it because it'll be in the way. Let me just scale this up really quick. All right. She is looking a lot better. And I'll go ahead and edit that in just a moment. What I would like to do is align the geometry here with what will essentially be our staff in just a moment. So we are going to use a little tool called Transpose Master. You can find this in your Z plugin menu under Transpose Master T-Pose Mesh. And essentially what this allows us to do is manipulate all of our subtools at once. You can sculpt on these and make all sorts of changes, and that will translate back to your sculpt. But that is basically what I was looking for. Maybe something a little bit more like that. And let's see. Let's try twisting this back down a little. Something like that. That's feeling pretty cool. And let me see. I might be able to adjust this just a little bit more. Actually, I kind of like that angle. More so prefer to adjust this one right here. That feels pretty good. Oh, more so from, oh, you know what? That's actually not too bad. We'll keep that. Cool, let's go ahead and T-pose back. So Z plugin, Transpose Master again, T-pose sub tools or T-pose sub T. You can see that calculate all the way through there. Make the necessary changes, and voila! Our little serpent staff is really coming together here pretty quick at the end. I'll just go ahead and tighten up some more of this, do some quick cleanup, and I think we're going to call it a night here on our stream. Hopefully a lot of the stuff that we covered earlier on was very helpful for you guys, kind of talking about Sculptris Pro, ZRemesher, DynaMesh. We covered a lot of stuff earlier on. The first hour was definitely a lot more tailored towards some beginner stuff, so if you guys are new here and you end up missing some of the earlier parts of the stream, this will be uploaded over on YouTube a little bit later. So if you missed anything, you guys can always catch the upload there once that goes up. It typically gets uploaded within about half a day or so, so that'll be back up pretty quick. And then if you guys want to check out more of my stuff, you can of course go on over to my YouTube channel, or where else can you find my stuff? So YouTube is just Follygon. Google Follygon and you'll find it, no problem. And then of course, if you just Google Follygon, you'll find my Gumroad, which is just gumroad.com/Follygon, where all my courses, brushes, materials, base meshes, etc., etc. You can find all of that stuff. There's some freebies, some free goodies on there as well, so definitely check it out. And then if you guys are more interested in my new course, I did mention this earlier, it's my stylized and appealing character sculpting course, so much akin to these few characters that I have at the top of the screen here. So if that sounds like something that interests you, go ahead and click on that appeal.academy website. But yes, other than that, unless we have any last minute questions here on the stream, I think that'll probably be it. So I'll give a couple minutes longer here for everybody else to just to make sure if we have any last minute things here. But if not, no worries. I'll just kind of continue to sculpt away. And actually, I do need to fix that hole in my mesh. That's a big, glaring, annoying issue. It's not visible from the front, but we're 3D artists, right? Gotta make it look good from every angle. That's the problem. Should have been a 2D artist. I messed up. The easier one. Not quite. Both very difficult for very different reasons. I don't really like how that's curving. Let's see if we can straighten this out a bit through here. Definitely really stretched in the geometry. Do something like that real quick. No problem at all. Thank you for stopping by, man. Have a great rest of your night. All right. Starting to clean that up a little bit more. But like I said, when using those pinch brushes, you'll start to stretch your geometry more and more as you continue to do this. I will also need to kind of line this up a little bit better. We have like this kind of squared off shape here with a little bit of some rounded edges. It's like a square cylinder, if that makes any sense. I don't really know what you would call this shape. It's pretty squared off, but rounded on the surfaces. It has some, what's the word, convexity to them. So I'll probably try to incorporate that a little bit more into the rest of the staff here. I just wanted to get an idea of the angle more so than anything else. But yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty good place for us to stop. Like I said, the rest of the stream will be uploaded here pretty soon over on YouTube. Again, Google Follygon if you guys want to check out the rest of my stuff. And stick around here on the Pixelogic channel, wherever you guys are watching. The next streamer is not going to be till tomorrow, but you guys can check out the schedule over on pixelogic.com. They're the creators of ZBrush. /ZBrush Live, and there's a calendar and everything else on here. So there's me. I typically stream on Tuesdays around 3 p.m. PST. That's my normal schedule. So look for me around then, and then check out Ashley if you guys are around tomorrow. She's the next streamer, and she'll be at 3 p.m. PST as well tomorrow, July 24th. So be on the lookout for that. And again, thanks for coming and hanging out, guys. You guys have a great rest of your night. Hope the stream was helpful. And I will see you next time. See you guys.